Hello, BookTube, and I'm here again with another weekly reads, and I've got Amy from To Think of Books,
Hello.
previously known as the Dusty Bookshelf. So your bookshelves are not dusty anymore. Ha
No, they're still dusty.
ha.
I was actually like getting ready to like set up this like setup to film, and I was like, oh, like as soon as we're done here, I need to get the Swiffer duster and go over all those shelves again because there's a good like centimeter or so of dust.
Oh, that's bad.
Yeah.
So the idea is last week I started doing this with Brandy at the Book Collectic and doing Sunday. So it's a Friday reads, but not quite a Friday weeds reads, and sort of going from Monday, or no, I guess last Sunday to yesterday. So Sunday to Saturday. Um, so and then we can just talk about anything else if anybody wants to throw in questions eventually, and we'll just see where the conversation goes. But yeah, what have you been reading this week, Amy?
Well, you asked me to do this on what ended up being a slow reading week, but I did read about 30 pages or so in the introduction of something called The Complete Angler. I don't
Oh,
know if you've
yeah.
read this one, Sean. It's from what I think 1653. It's one of those books that's been like reprinted over and over again. And this is Isaac Walton and Charles Cotton. And Isaac Walton is the same author who wrote The Life of John Donne, which I haven't read, but if you've read any Dr. Johnson, you'll know that Dr. Johnson was a big fan of the biographies of Isaac Walton, which I think partly inspired the biographies that he then went on to write. But yeah, you can see my bookmark in there. I'm not not very far at all, but I did start it. And I wasn't sure what to expect. I would call it kind of like a dialogue. And so I guess angler, like some people might not know what angler means, but basically it's referring to fishing. And so it's this falconer and a hunter and an angler who are all traveling somewhere together and having this conversation. And so far, they're talking about the merits of their different hobbies and the type of people who are drawn to those different hobbies. And I think they're going to try to prove that, each of their hobbies is the best one for historical reasons. But as I said, only 30 pages in.
Yeah, it's a long time. I've got a copy of it, and I've kept meaning to reread it. But it's been a perennial sort of favorite. Like anybody that's in the last 100 years, you pick up their books, and they talk about books they read. They'll all refer to uh, the Complete Angler, or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
It's like they always refer to it. Um, and hi, well, that previously that was Mark at Book Time with
Oh,
Albert,
yeah.
and Alan at Big Hard Books and Classics. And we got Mark again, a different Mark from
Yes,
Richardson,
the
Virginia.
other Mark.
And Alan says he enjoyed your video on the King Charles mint collection
Oh, yeah.
coins.
Did you see that video on my channel, Sean? It was a
Yes, I
very
did.
short
Yeah,
video. Yeah.
yeah. I always mean to buy stuff like that, and this would probably be a good one to buy because it's the first. It'll be the first issue, obviously, of
Mhm.
of as I call. Oh, I better not say it because it'll probably offend people if I say what I usually call King Charles.
Well, I have to admit, I'm not the biggest fan of Charles, but he is the king, and I'm starting a coin collection. For anyone who's been following my channel over the last couple of years, last summer when my grandfather passed, who, come to think of it, it's funny, his name was Charles. When my grandfather Charles passed, I inherited a box of a coin collection that he had. And so I started going through those, and I photographed and did some research and made a little booklet with, I think, about half of the collection, which were mainly American coins that I gave to my siblings and my parents for Christmas. And so I've still been working through those coins, and I've always had a little bit of a coin collection myself, just a few, things I found in circulation, interesting coins. And so I thought, well, this would be a good opportunity to start adding to this collection myself with some Canadian coins. And so I did. For those who haven't seen the video, it's just a small, I guess, a little pamphlet of 2023 uncirculated coins with King Charles III on the back of them. So the loonie, which is the Canadian $1 coin, the toonie, the Canadian $2 coin, a 50-cent coin, which I thought that was kind of odd because that's not really used. It exists, but you wouldn't go into a store and try to pay for something with a 50-cent coin. And then the quarter, the nickel, and the dime. And so I added that to my collection.
Did you have, well, I guess you're just starting. What I'd like to get is sort of my birth year coins. I would like to get a few countries around the world with my birth year.
Yeah, well, it's pretty simple for me. I collected some when I was a kid. I think I've got a few just coins from circulation that are 1994 because it's still pretty easy to find a coin from 30 years ago.
Yeah, I remember going through pennies all the time and getting 1920s pennies and stuff. I don't know if you still see those
not so they took the penny out of circulation here over a decade ago. So you don't see them anymore. And there's things on TikTok where people are using old pennies to tile their bathroom floors because they're not worth anything anymore. But I did save a few just because they're now out of circulation.
Yeah, well, it's like a friend of mine was saying in Canada because he went to buy some washers and they're really expensive. I said, well, you've got thousands of pennies that you can't do anything with. You got to drill a hole. There's your washer.
Yeah, well, that's why they took them out of circulation, because it cost a lot more to make them than a penny. And so, they went away and we started rounding up or down when you go to buy something. So if you're paying, with a card, nothing changes. You still pay if something's, I don't know, $22.54, you'd still pay that. But if you're paying in cash, you'd pay $22.55 instead.
Back to books. Mark's trying to tout a new, which is kind of cool. I'm not sure. Are you going to do it this summer, Mark, or are you going to announce it? It's the summer of sport. So the
Olympics,
yeah, but it's sort of like to read fiction, I think, and nonfiction about sports. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a neat idea. Alan's saying it's a great hobby, a great hobby for coin collecting, and Mark had a nice coin and stamp collection. And Mark, me and you.
I'm the one who's starting to feel old.
But you were born. Well, when were you born? It was 94, was it?
Yeah, August 4th of 94.
And the strange thing is, I think we've talked about this before. I'm not sure if on live or anything. That I used to go to book sales because you're sort of you grew up nearby where I was in Canada.
Yeah.
And we probably were at a book sale at the same time, or a good chance.
Yes.
But you would have been what?
What year would I probably would have been 4 or 5 years old. Because my family, we grew up just around the block from a small town library, and we were there a couple times a week. And every summer there'd be a library book sale, and my mom would load us into the wagon, go around the block. And with my family, it was choose as many books as you would like, as long as they fit in one bag.
Yeah, and there's a good chance that we're probably there at the same time.
Yeah.
That is just so weird, but you would never remember me. I would never remember you.
All I remember are the books.
Yes. Alan saying, excellent place to start, mint sets of your birthday year. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I could probably find that somewhere.
Yeah, I'm thinking of doing that, but it's now getting expensive, I think, for mine. Mm-hmm. And Mark said, yeah, he is hopes to announce it next month. So, well, this is a pre-announcement then for the summer of sport. So yeah. So what else? What else have you read? We got digressed there from.
Yeah. Well, I'll use read loosely because I know this could start a whole debate. But I was listening to an audiobook. I was listening to an audiobook from 2019 called The Lost Gutenberg by Margaret Leslie Donis, talking about, I guess, number 45 of the Gutenberg or the Mazarin Bibles, whatever you choose to call them. And once again, I'm only like on chapter 3, so I don't have much to say about this yet, but she's trying to follow the history of the book from owner to owner. Now, obviously printed in the 1500s, and it's hard to track books back that far. So she only picks up about 400 years. So just before the Victorian era with the first documented owner. And I think she's going to trace it all the way to an owner in the United States who purchased it in the 30s or the 40s. Wow. But that should be interesting.
Is that it then, or have you?
Yeah, that's pretty much, yeah.
Okay. Just a few more comments here. Mark says, yeah, he's feeling old when he sees 1994.
Yeah.
And Alan says, oh, to be young again. Genre books. If Marty McFly were to travel back the same amount as Back to the Future, he would be going, oh, really? Okay, that's just weird, because even in 1994, what I guess it was the 50s that he went back to. That seemed far enough back, but 1994 just does not. It just, that to me is yesterday. It's yesterday. The Gutenberg sounds interesting. Yeah, that would be an interesting.
Yeah.
Who wrote that again? It's
called The Lost Gutenberg. It's from 2019.
Oh, okay.
And I'm surprised I had never heard of it. Like, I was looking for something on my Audible app to listen to, and I was like, oh, what's this in my recommendations? And so I bought it with my credit. And
I've seen, I don't know if there was, I've seen a Gutenberg or two, because when was this? This must have been in, I can't remember now, when I was in New York City, a way back, and went to the what's the Morgan Library? Is that right? Yeah, and they had, he has actually several Bibles. Was the thing he collected, but he did have several Gutenberg Bibles. Yeah. So I was able to see one there.
Yeah, I'd be really interested, like, it probably won't because most of them are in institutions, but I'd be interested if one actually ended up at auction to see how much it would go for, like, in 2024. Because I think the last one was sold in like the 70s, right?
I don't know. I know it was expensive. It was a lot of money. It might have been 1994, Mark. It actually might have been 1994 when I was there. I can't remember now. And Alan says he uses Audible a lot, and he knows that Mark Elvis, I don't think, uses it very often. But yeah,
I go back and forth with using Audible. Like, I'll use it, and then I'll cancel the subscription because I'm not using it. And then I'll resubscribe because I'm like, oh, I'm going to go for my walks. I need something to listen to.
Yeah, I just never got into listening to people read books. I do like some of the like there's a few people that I do like the sound of their voice, so it is nice to hear, but I don't do it regularly. But I am a big fan of Audible. Oh geez, I can't even speak tonight. Audible sort of works like radio drama and stuff like that. I really like that kind of stuff, but that is different. But then they mix the two, because there's ones that they have a whole cast reading the story, so it almost like is a multicast drama. but yeah, I've already more or less gone through this our Friday one because I haven't read
Yeah.
anything much this week because I started out okay. I finished up or I read this one here, which is a fictional account of David Livingston. Well, it's about his body basically after he
Mhm.
died and about his servants that carried his body to the coast. And it's pretty brutal and sometimes because there's really detailed descriptions of them sort of mummifying his body. So it gets pretty intense at times there. Uh, Mark has to go. Chores. Yeah. Thanks, Mark.
Have a
So
good Sunday, Mark.
yeah, he's got. Mark says he's gotten into Audible much more recently. A lot of good freebies.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. I like I say, I prefer to read a book myself.
Mhm. Mhm.
But yeah, no, this is. I'm glad I read this, even though I'm gonna do a little more detailed. Um, I think a review of it. I keep saying I'm gonna do some things like that, so I think
Yeah.
I'm going to do that. So I'll save the juicy details for my review. And then I started reading because for Spring into Adventure. This is Travels in West Africa by Mary Kingsley. It's Charles
Oh,
Kingsley's daughter, and she went to West Africa in 1893. She did a couple trips, but one of them was to collect fish, basically,
oh.
and she pickled fish and brought them back. That was her job, but she wrote a lot and descriptions of the land and the people, as well as religion, but she calls the religion fetish. So,
Oh.
rather than actually religion. So, but a few people have said they don't like the way she describes the local indigenous population. But so far, she's very very respectful of them. She's not using the normal derogatory
Mhm.
terms, in any shape or form. And I think she has a lot of respect for them, even though I the fetish part, I think it's because she's obviously Christian. So I think
Mhm.
it's just a reaction that it's not really a religion. So, and but until she gets into that, I'm not sure how she's going to deal
Mhm.
with describing their beliefs. So I'm looking
Mhm.
forward to that actually. I'd read this a long time ago, but I don't remember much of it at all.
Oh, yeah.
So I still got a lot to go, but
Mhm.
there's some nice photographs in here too. Um, but yeah, that's about all I've been reading too.
Mhm.
So this is a poor a weekly
Yeah.
read for me for sure.
Like I've got a few like sets of books still on the go. Like I'm still working my way through the Diary of Samuel Pepys that I bought last year. It's a set from the 1970s. I've just started volume 4. Like it's very mundane, and
Yeah,
I'm sure if I had a lot more like historical knowledge and didn't just have like a surface level of English history in the 17th century, I would understand a lot more. But like I'm enjoying what I am reading, and a lot of it's like mundane. Like he'll be like, I got up, I had my morning draft, I went to the office, I came home, I had dinner with my wife. But then some of it's like quite humorous, like getting the stairs redone in his house and them trying to live in the house with no stairs and having a ladder and like trying to get his wife up and down and eventually deciding, well, he's going to send his wife off to her mother's and he's going to stay in the house and watch the workmen. And then that gets all done. And little things like having to get together the money to pay his bills and all sorts of things like that.
yeah.
I don't know. Have you ever dipped into those?
Yeah, I have. I've read bits and pieces throughout it, but a couple years ago I started reading. I was reading it day by day.
Oh, yeah. That's,
So I got through the first volumes like the first year
yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
10 years basically.
Mhm.
But I do like, and I've read other bits of it, but I do like it the way he usually ends it. It goes, oh, and so home and to bed. or something
Yeah.
like that. Let's use the usual little saying.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but I like, yeah, some of the stuff is like he's going to plays, like he describes
Mhm.
going to plays,
Yeah.
and um, actually, well, other things that he does with the barmaids and in the
Yeah. Yeah.
in the in the
His
pubs and
poor
stuff like that.
wife. His poor
Cocktails.
wife. And then there's some entries where you're like, who is this woman he's going to see? Is this his mistress? Like, who is this woman? Like he's having dinner with his wife and then going off somewhere else
Yeah.
and doesn't seem to be like talking to his wife about this woman.
No, he put himself around. Let's put it that way.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
There's a part, and I'm not sure when it happens. I'm not sure if it's a house that he's in at the moment, but it's like down in the cellar or the basement, like there's sewage coming from the next door neighbor, from the sewage
Yeah.
pit
Yeah.
there, and he just can't stand the stench of it.
Mhm.
And then he's got this, his little house boy that's sort of a long-suffering little boy
Yeah.
that's, he doesn't really get beat, but it's almost like, he's the little dog's body of
Yeah.
the family. But yeah, it's fun to read, but that's why a lot of people, because it's mundane, there's just little bits and pieces at times that people read the condensed sort of version or the abridged versions. Penguin has done one, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And like when I decided to read it, I was like adamant. I did not want the condensed version. If I was going to read it, I wanted the whole thing. And so I purchased it like volume by volume from different sellers. And I think when I ordered, I actually ended up with like double and was missing a volume because you know how online booksellers can be. Some of them don't care. Some of them mislabel things. And one of them showed up and I'm like, wait a minute, I've got like 2 volume 6s now. Which of these booksellers sent me the wrong thing? And like, thankfully they refunded me once I showed them a picture. I'm like, you said you were sending me this and this is what you sent me instead. And
yeah, I bought the set itself. It's really good. Like it's the same set as yours as well. And what I like too is I've got a book that it's about 1,000 pages, but it covers every coffee house in London, and it gives a little brief history. So when I was reading it, I was always looking, because he's always going to so and so coffee house, and it was really neat to compare and to see how long that coffee house was there, or or the other pubs and stuff that he went to, because it's always every morning you got to have your beer. You got to have your beer.
Like obviously the standards were different, but I'm just like, he seems like he was absolutely a raging alcoholic. And I don't know if you remember from some entries where he's like, I've resolved not to drink wine anymore. I've resolved to give up wine for this many days. Oops, I had wine again. And then he's talking about like how sick he is, how hungover he is, how he's not going to drink that wine anymore. He's just going to have his beer.
I think there's some pretty good entries with gout too, or somebody having gout. I remember.
Yeah.
And I've had at various times gout in my feet, so I go, I know what he's talking about. Bye, Alan. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, it's quite fabulous, and especially, do you have the extra volumes too? The one with and everything.
Yeah, like I'm forgetting what it's called. It's like an encyclopedia kind of thing of terms.
Yeah, and
like
there's
different
essays,
concepts.
I think, as well.
Yeah. Like there's I read through part of one of the volumes. There was a whole section on like the foods and stuff, but then like I went and read that because I was reading in volume 1 and I forget exactly what it is, but there was reference to some sort of food item. And so I went to like read about it, and it was not mentioned at all in like the essay on food. And so I still don't entirely know what it is.
Do you remember what it was, what it said?
No, because that would have been like probably a year ago now that I read it.
Yeah, Mark says, yeah, he's not too fussed about condensed versions because it skips the mundane stuff. Yeah, and sometimes the mundane
Yeah.
stuff is interesting, but it's a lot of people now don't have the patience
Mhm.
to read through it because yeah, there's a lot of days that it's just yeah,
Yeah,
up in the
yeah.
morning, off to the office and then back.
Mhm.
But he doesn't seem to work at all. Like he's
No,
always in the
he's just
office.
like, yeah, I went into the office because I felt like it, and then like we left the office and we went out for a drink, and
Yeah,
he's like, gee, maybe I should do some work. But like it seems to me like it was like he's a quote like civil servant, right? But
yeah.
obviously he's like a very high, like in name only. He goes in and does like a little bit of accounting work, make sure like the sailors get paid and whatnot. But it doesn't seem like he was on a time clock or had anyone overseeing or caring whether he was actually showing up to the office.
Well, I think he was doing a lot of double dealing too to
Yeah,
get
yeah,
extra money because with the
yeah,
Navy and everything. And
yeah, yeah,
he used boards and stuff from the ships to build his bookcases as
yeah,
well. He had
yeah.
somebody build his bookcases. Uh,
Yeah. Well, I know there was one entry where he seemed like he was afraid he was going to be in trouble because he seemed to have borrowed money from the office for his personal expenses. And someone said to him, "You must pay back this money you borrowed right now because it's needed." And so he was running around like trying to get loans from people so he could pay back the money he had taken from the public coffers for his own personal use. And like, I don't
I
know,
remember
maybe that was normal in the day, but
there was I forget what her name is. There's a biography that's really good that's written, and I think it was after like he was originally living in a little garret, I think,
Mhm.
and with his family, and he had all his books and everything. But I think it was because of Charles, the beheading and that he just went out into somebody's house and just took over their house.
Oh,
They just took over their house. I'm pretty sure that's it. And I can't think of her name.
yeah.
The big, she's a big. Uh, oh, I can't think of her name. The author of it, but I'm sure Mark knows. She wrote a lot of stuff and a lot of biographies, but I just can't think of her name off the top of my head. But yeah, no, he was an interesting guy, that's for
Yeah.
sure. All his I never did get to see because all his books, his library is his complete library is in I think Cambridge University,
Oh, yeah,
and it's
yeah.
still in his bookcases.
Mhm.
And it was sort of like anytime he got to whatever number of books, like how many thousand. Yeah, Claire Tomlin. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Claire Tomlin. Um, he he would have to, if he got another book, he would have to take one out of his library to put another
Oh,
one in. And he did it all by height. And he had sort of shelves,
mhm,
like they were double deep, but the shelves in the back were raised up. So you would see, like there's the spine down here of the front row, and then the back would be raised up a little bit with
mhm,
shorter books, and so you'd see the spine there as well. So they'd be double deep.
mhm.
And I always wanted to see that library, but I never did.
Yeah, that'd be something to see.
And it took however long, like I forget how many hundreds of years they didn't translate his diary. When I say translate, is because he used shorthand.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
but the clue was right in his library.
Yeah,
It
like
was a
I
scope.
was reading about that, like in the introduction to my set. You probably read it about
Yeah,
there in the introduction to your set as well. That like the whole collection was there. There was like a book on the shorthand style he was using in the collection, and they had like cryptographers spending like a century or two,
yeah.
maybe even 3 centuries, trying to decipher what this was because it was a style of shorthand only used for about 30 years and not very popular. And then all of a sudden, I think sometime in the late 19th century, someone was like, "Oh, what's this? Hey, look, we found it." And
Yeah.
that's why, like, a lot of the earlier editions of the Diary of Samuel Pepys are only parts of it because they went and they translated what they thought were the most interesting parts, and I think this set from the 1970s is the first time that someone actually took the time to put together the whole thing in one edition.
Yeah, I think, what is it, Latham? I think is the surname of the guy who did it.
I think
Is that
so.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and also too, the earlier ones took out the dirty parts too.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And or when they did leave stuff in, I think they left because he would write in French as well. Like he would do it in French, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember reading about them transcribing everything, because there's still issues, because I think if I remember right, the shorthand leaves out vowels or
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
leaves stuff out, so you could actually put in you could make different words and it still would make sense in the sentence, but it would change the meaning of the sentence.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's interesting as well. So I
Yeah,
don't
that's like in the edition I have, sometimes there'll be footnotes where the footnote basically says, yeah, we selected this word, but it could also have possibly been this
yeah,
in this
and then but
section.
if you substitute that word, it
Yeah,
changes
yeah,
the meaning.
yeah.
So what did he actually mean? No, those are great. There's
Yeah.
my memory is so bad. There's another diarist from the same sort of period that I'd like to read, which I haven't. I think it starts with W. Anyway, there's quite a bit of stuff. There's a lot of diaries, and I know you like the diaries. And
Yeah, yeah.
there's I've got a collection of letters. Well, it's later, but it was a book collector. And it's his letters to a bookseller, and back and forth, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Of books. So that's kind of cool. And I think there is a collection of letters of Pepys as well. I think there's letters. Or wait a minute, who didn't? What's his name? Whose letters did he have? The book collector that we both like. That we
A. Edward Newton.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember whose letters he had.
Oh, that was you mentioned him first of all, that he liked
Dr. Johnson.
Yes, it was.
Yes.
Yeah, it was Dr. Johnson's letter. Yeah, Diary of John Eveland. Yeah, that's
yes,
it.
John Eveland. That's on my list to get and read at some point too. But of course, like, sets cost more than buying a single book, and so it's like a commitment. Like, I have to decide, okay, I'm going to read this, I'm going to get the set, and I'm going to pay for the shipping on the set.
Mark says he's got a funny every. What? Tsar Peter the Great. I'm not sure what you mean there. I'm a bit lost. It's either entry rather. Okay. A funny entry on Tsar Peter the Great. Who is that? John Eveland or Pepys that we're talking about? I'm not sure. As a lot of people, like it's sort of funny, because when you first see it, you see people calling him Peppies or something like that. There's a good, if you're interested too, the BBC did a good. It was only 15-minute entries, but they did a drama of Pepys.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, they choose very lightly from it, and
yeah, I was going to say, is that the censored versions of his entries for the BBC?
Yeah, but they do hint at the other stuff. Oh no, yeah. So it's because the Tsar rented Eveland's house.
He rented his house and trashed it. I'd be writing a nasty journal entry too if that happened.
God, you think that rock stars were the ones that created that? Trashing places. But you never know what Peter the Great did on his time off, you know. But yeah, there's trying to think. There's a lot of diaries. Like you've got the Newtons sort of. Did he translate the Madame?
The letters of Madame de Sévigné. Yeah, I don't think he translated, but he wrote the introduction for like a 7-volume set in the 1920s, which I like went to the ends of the earth on the internet to find and paid way too much for.
Yeah, they'd be nice to get, and I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I think they're mentioned in Victor Hugo's Les Miserables. I think they're mentioned. I think, or is it maybe another one? Because there were lots of diary. Because when did she live?
17, like early 1700s.
Yeah, I think they might have. I think he might have did that. They had raucous drinking parties, and they wiped their asses on this curtain. He asked the King of England to give him compensation. They also had wheelbarrow.
They had oh my goodness. And it was probably a really nice, well-kept garden too.
Oh God. Well, I guess. Well, this is the thing. I guess the Russians have a long history of drinking and destruction. Oops! I'll probably get canceled for that. Yeah, there's the letters too. You're a big one on letters as well.
Yeah, like I think I'm on the, let me look behind me where my bookmark is. I'm on the 3rd volume of Madame de Sévignon's letters, and I read through like 2 of them in March when I was taking like train journeys, and that was a nice place to read them. But like, once again, a lot of it's somewhat mundane, but there's also a lot going on in her letters, because like I don't know what age she is when she's the volume 1 of her letters, but like she's a mother by that point. And so in the first couple of volumes, her favorite daughter ends up marrying, and she had thought she was marrying her daughter off to someone who was going to stay in Paris, and her husband's career would keep her daughter close to her. But then she ends up going off to the provinces and to Brittany. And so a lot of the letters are the back and forth between her and her daughter. And there's these very like scolding letters to her daughter's husband saying, you know, give my daughter a break, like no more children, you're going to kill her. And then some very like anxious letters when she knows like the due date of the next child is due, basically waiting, like, is my daughter dead? Is she surviving this childbirth? And so there's a lot of that. But then also you can tell like all these political intrigues are going on and power struggles. And Madame de Sévigné was a part of the court. And so she's seeing a lot of things and sort of writing about them cryptically and changing people's names and writing to her cousin. She jokes about like, let's make sure our letters don't get intercepted. Why would anyone read my letters to my cousin? And so it's all very good stuff.
Yeah, I'd like to get, because when I saw you trying to get that, and I'm going, oh, that's not going to be like, you know, you could buy a set of it, but you got to really, really pay through the nose for the set.
Because like, I think right now, if you want to purchase like the complete 7-volume set together, you're looking at like $500-$600 and up. And that would be for a set in not very nice condition. Yeah. But if you get lucky and you do what I did, and so I found, I think, volumes 1 to 3 from a seller. And then I found like volumes 5 and 6, and I got volume 7 separately. And so I think I got mine for maybe $300 total, tracking it down that way. And of course, there was a whole adventure where 3 of the volumes went missing at Canadian Customs. For like over a month they were there. And to the point where I was like contacting the seller, I'm like, I think they're lost. But eventually they did show up on the other side. But I think the issue there was the seller had labeled it as one book, and the package had 3 books and was extremely heavy. And so they probably like took it aside to open it thinking, this doesn't seem like a book.
Yeah, it's something else. I don't know if you, well, you know that, well, you probably know that I really like them is John, not John, Lord Chesterfield's letters to his son.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
I did a bad reading of some of them for a while, but I really, really like them. I really like them. And again, like there's mundane stuff or just arguments between him and his son. He's telling his son what to do. So there's a lot of the stuff, and you go, oh, geez, this, even though he doesn't see his dad, his father, he's still so controlled by him, know. But it's the subject matter that's really really cool. And I've also got somewhere. I gotta dig out the Balzac letters. I got a couple volumes of Balzac, I think.
Yeah, that's like on my to buy eventually list.
The bad thing of the one I've got is like there's one for some reason they used, instead of sewing some of the sections in, they stapled them.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, and it's like it was like they were so rusty and everything on the one set that the section was coming out anyway, so I took the staples out, so I got a section that just comes out by itself. But yeah, it's that's kind of sad. And then I've got an old collection of Johnson's letters. I'd love the new one. There was a newer, and in Canada, I think I had 3 volumes of. It's going to be his complete letters that a university press put out, which would be kind of cool. Or well, I guess
that's also on my list to like track down eventually. I'm trying to rein in my spending this year. Like I went into this year saying I'm not going to buy any books, and I've bought several books this year so far.
Spaminators here. You're 20% the way through Les Miserables. It's taken forever with all the footnotes. I should be hating this, but I'm loving it. Yeah, no, I love it as well. Yeah, see, you must be reading it on the on Kindle or something, because in the Penguin edition, it's a bit of a pain for the notes because you don't know what's like end noted, I should say. There's footnotes, but you don't know what's end noted. So you either have to just forget about it, or every chapter then go to the end and then read the notes because you don't know what's been noted, the end notes, which drives me crazy. But you don't quite need it all, but it gives you more historical background for it. But yeah, no, I love Les Miserables. I've read it 5 times now, and I'm gonna read it again probably next year, another translation. But I'm sure he mentions who else? Oh, did Pompadour, what's her name, do some letters or diaries?
I think so, yeah.
It could have been that one. I can't remember now, but he mentioned so much stuff in there, but yeah, it's and then there's another one. What's her name? There's another French one that's during the Revolution. I think that is a popular collection of. Is it letters or diaries? God, I hate my brain.
Is it Madame du Barry? Did she do some?
Yes, Madame du Barry. That's who I'm thinking of. Yeah, I don't know if she was at the during the Revolution, and I can't remember now. But yeah, it's Madame du Barry. That's the other one I was thinking of.
She's the one who is absolutely despised, right?
But I remember reading some of the letters, and I think it's letters or is it diary, and I remember liking them. Like they were interesting to read. So yeah, I think I had a set of her, either the diary or the letters in my sort of wish list section of Aid, and they weren't too bad a price. I think they were like £40 or something, an old set, which I thought was
no, that's not bad.
Yeah, and I didn't see this one by Mark.
Yeah, drink every time. Sean says how many times he's read Les Mis.
Well, I don't know how many people have read it 5 times. So
if you play that drinking game with me, you'll only get to take half a shot because I never finished it.
But yeah, so it's just like there's not that many people that probably have read it 5 times. So I've got to be in the minority. And I eventually will have it read more times than that because I'm going to read the Julia Rose, the previous translation to this one. And then probably, I'll work backward. Well, no, I've read the other one, the Norman Denny one. So then I'll go back to what's her name from 1900. And then I'll read the first British translation, and then the first American translation, and then maybe start over again and start comparing them.
So, like, have you read like all of Victor Hugo's other works, or is it just like Les Mis that you're just reading over and over?
I'm reading it over and over, but I do want to read the others because there's ones like Toiler of the Sea that I want to read. The Laughing Man, or no, what's it called? The Man Who Laughs. And there's some other ones that I haven't read that I do have that I do want to read as well. And I've got to get around to rereading Notre Dame de Paris as well. I haven't read that in a long time. Mark and I were supposed to read it, I think, in December of last year. I don't know. Did you ever read that, Mark? I'm not sure if he got around to it or not. There's a film about Madame de Berry coming out. Oh, okay. It's in French and stars Johnny Depp.
Oh yeah, I think I heard about that. Yeah.
Are you serious, Johnny Depp?
Johnny Depp.
Okay.
Because I think I saw a clip of Johnny Depp speaking French, and I was like,
he does know it.
I think I've seen the trailer for it. Yeah.
That's odd. But him playing Louis XV, it's like, okay, it's going to be a quirky king of France.
Yeah, I'll have to remember to watch that when it comes out. I'm sure they'll be playing it at one of the local theaters here.
Well, yeah, because they probably they could play it without subtitles as well. So.
Yeah. I mean, they'll probably play it with subtitles too on the Ontario side, but
yeah,
if I want it without, I can just cross the river.
That reminds me of get rid of that. Going back to Les Miserables, Johnny Depp, Gerard Depardieu did a long version of it that was like 6 hours or something like that, but in French. And as far as I can tell, the only time that was put out on DVD or anything in its entirety, it was put out by a Quebec company. But they don't have subtitles on it.
Yeah. And your French isn't that good to.
I've seen it. I'm sure I've seen it because there's an Ontario channel, or there was, that played just French material. It was like a TVO type channel, I think. Do you remember it?
Yeah, like I remember, I couldn't tell you what it was called. I just remember as a kid, that was the channel I'd skip when I was trying to find something to watch.
Well, I went by it, and it was Les Miserables starting. So I watched this, and I'm sure it was the one with Gerard Depardieu. And obviously, I can't understand a word of French, but I enjoyed it the way it was. So I'd love to see it. All there is a cut down version of it. And I guess, I don't know. I didn't know he was married to French. Well, I know he's got a villa or a house in France somewhere, and I knew that he did speak French quite fluently. But no, it just I like Johnny Depp as an actor, but he usually plays quirky parts, you know, or he plays those parts kind of in a quirky way, and I don't think the King of France as doing
maybe he's going for one of his first serious roles.
Could be, I suppose so. Well, he's done other serious ones.
Yeah, but even in the serious roles, they still were kind of quirky movies.
Spender saying so far he prefers Notre Dame. But I'll admit that partly because the old Lon Chaney film is one of his favorite movies. It's amazing how well his makeup effects uh, hold up today. Yeah,
Mhm.
no, it, yeah, Notre Dame is amazing as well, and those are the two books that he's going to be remembered for is Notre Dame and the other thing, but and Les Miserables. But uh, have you seen the Man Who Laughs? I'm asking more or less, I think, Spaminator, the silent one with Conrad Veidt. It's where basically the Joker was taken from because his cheeks were slit up and he's in a permanent smile, a grotesque smile. Oh, I did wanted to ask you. I never did think. What's your latest um, uh, Edward Newton acquisition?
Oh, I don't have any like latest
Oh,
acquisitions because, like I said, I'm trying not to buy too many books this year. So, like, I have things in my Abe cart because I'm trying to collect all like his little pamphlets and self-published booklets that like he printed himself and sent out to friends. I don't know if you've seen any of them, but it's like blue construction paper that's like folded like a half page. And they're usually only like a dozen, maybe 15 pages long with like a short essay or a few like thoughts or something. And they're like bound with a piece of string and they say published at like Oak Knoll. And they seem to be the sort of thing that he sent out like at Christmas to like his mailing list in place of like a Christmas card or something
uh-huh.
like that. And I've got 3 of them now. But the thing is, I don't know how many there are, and I don't know if it's possible to know how many there are.
I don't think there's a biography of him. There's definitely not a bibliography that I'm aware of. Uh,
Yeah, no, I do. I think there might be like I guess you would call it like an unauthorized, poorly done biography from
oh,
shortly after his death. Like I have that in my cart as well that I had never heard of until like I was doing my, I guess, bi-monthly search for A. Edward Newton to see if anything new and interesting was popping up. And I was like, oh, like what's this random book? And like I can't remember the title of it now, but there does appear to have been some sort of biographical work that someone wrote like just a couple of years after his death. But
oh,
like
okay.
I wouldn't know until reading it like how good it was or how accurate it was.
Oh, I think yeah. I haven't seen that, but I just remember now you got the his play of about Johnson, didn't you?
Yes, yes, I have his self-indulgent play on Dr. Johnson, which could never actually be performed on a stage because there's no character movement. If it were a play, people would be more or less like sitting in one room in one spot, monologuing. And it's like he went through like all his favorite like quotes from Dr. Johnson and like Boswell and like the famous people who came in and out of like Johnson's life and like put it all into like a play. And it's mostly dialogue. And so like it's obviously never been performed, but he wrote it
Hmm.
and it's nicely bound, like it's kind of this orange and yellow pattern.
Yeah, I've been sort of I wanted to get that, but I haven't bought it. But yeah, the pamphlets would be nice. You
Mhm,
think,
mhm.
yeah, because if he just sent them out sort of willy nilly in a sense, that it'd
Yeah,
be hard
yeah.
to know. And I guess it would be just keep searching and then just
Mhm.
hoover up anything that pops up. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. Because
but
like
yeah,
I think I also have like the 3-volume sales catalog from when
yeah,
his book
yeah.
collection was sold at auction in the 1940s. And if I'm remembering right, there is sort of like a bibliography of his works at the end of one of the volumes, but it doesn't include stuff like pamphlets. It's just like here's a list of like his essay collections and whatnot. And but there's so much, well, there could be so much out there, but I don't know what's out there until I find it.
I'm surprised that Oak Knoll Press, the book publisher that does reprints and prints and publishes new books about books. I'm surprised because that's where they took their name from.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm surprised they haven't done something about
Mhm.
a Edward Newton, because they should have,
Yeah, yeah, you would think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. I didn't think of that, but I've never seen anything. It would come up in searches for sure
Mhm, mhm.
if they did.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's somebody that I would like to continue more. And
Mhm.
what's the other one? The other essayist that I uh, have told you about, and I think you finally got one. It was one of the books that fell apart. I think you had.
Oh,
Um,
is that the Andrew Lang?
no, not the Andrew.
Not
I
it.
do like Andrew Lang. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, there's another one.
yeah,
It's sort of not table talk.
yeah. Because I did have an Andrew Lang that fell apart.
Yeah, no. Was it? I do like Andrew Lang, his essays, but this is another one, and I can't think of
Mhm.
his name for some reason.
Yeah.
And I've got a lot of his stuff, and I want to get more. I can't think of the name. I can't think of the name for some reason. But I think you did finally get a book by him. I think
Yeah,
within the last year or so. Do
I
you
might
remember
have.
any
Yeah.
updates that you picked up recently?
Like it's hard to remember what I bought in the last year and what I bought longer ago.
Okay,
Because
no.
when I did my bookshelf tour, like the start of this year, I was like, oh yeah, like wait a minute, I bought this 4 years ago. I bought this 3 years ago. This isn't a new purchase.
Oh, I can't think of his name, but I keep talking about him, and I keep saying that you should get something. And I've got a couple of duplicate books that I've
Yeah,
of his, and I've wanted to send, and I just can't think of his name for some reason. But I really like his stuff. He was
I'm sort of
friends.
looking behind me. So next to the Newton, there's like Rosenbach,
No,
James Milne, William Dana Orcutt,
no,
Holbrook Jackson.
yeah, those are all good.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, he was sort of the biggest sort of literary critic in the late
Yeah.
1800s, early 1900s. He was friends with uh, the guy who faked a lot of the stuff as well. Like I
Yeah.
name for
Yeah.
some reason, and he was sort of caught up in that, or posthumously, I guess, caught up in
Mhm.
that. Anyway,
Yeah.
if I think of the name, or if I discover it, I'll put it down in
Mhm.
the comments for anybody
Sounds good. Sounds
wondering
good.
what's going on.
Yeah.
Uh, Spaminator says The Man Who Laughs is a great movie too.
Mhm.
Very movie. Yeah, I watched it several times before I
Mhm.
realized it was based on a Hugo book. No, I haven't read the book either. I've got a translation of it. There's no recent. I think the only translation is over 100 years old
Mm.
that I could find. I've got a hardcover of it, and I also want to do the Toiler of the Sea as well that he wrote about sort of fishing fleet. I think on the Guernsey or the Channel Islands when he was there. Uh, but uh, but yeah, no, Andrew Lang is really good. I like his stuff, and he came up again when for um, Spring into Adventure we were reading
Mm.
She uh, by H. Rider Haggard, and it was
Mhm.
dedicated to Andrew Lang. And Andrew Lang actually they both co-wrote a few books, and I'd love to get more of Andrew Lang, but
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
wrote
He's
so much.
expensive to buy.
Yeah. Well, it's the fairy book. See, I never. That's not how I discovered him. I
Mhm.
discovered him by that the book collecting book
Mhm.
with his essays, and I can't think of the name of it either. But and then the other one. What's the one that you got that was starting to fall apart?
Well, that's the library that I fixed with some glue, and I I hope it holds. It seems to be okay.
I don't think I have that one. I don't
Yeah.
have that one. But I've got other ones. His letters to dead authors,
Yeah.
which are really cool.
Yeah, because
Well,
I've got two by Lang, and what's the other one? Essays in Little. The other one I have by him is Essays in Little.
yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's I like his look. Like he put a little book of poetry book poetry, like
Mhm.
poems about books, and that's really really good.
Yeah.
He wrote a few too. He actually wrote some poetry as well. I'm trying to think now. It's still bugging me. I can't think of the other
Yeah.
essayist. But I
I'm sure
really
like
really
the moment you would say it or I would say it, we'd be like, "Oh yes." But
yeah.
right now I'm not sure. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like two of these people that I really want to get more of is Edward Newton and this one I can't think
Yeah.
of.
Yeah.
Those are the two. Even though I'd like to get more of Andrew Lang. You
Yeah.
mentioned Holbrook. You mentioned what is it, Urquhart or whatever his name was? Yeah,
Yeah. Orcutt.
yeah,
Will Dana
William.
William Orcutt or William
Yeah,
Dana Orcutt? I think it's William Dana Orcutt.
yeah, and then uh, yeah, in the other one too. Like all those are great,
Mhm.
and Rosenbach, but he only wrote I think two books. I think because
I
he
think
was.
there's more than that because I have
Is
two
there?
from Rosenbach, but there's more out there. And
Oh,
at
okay.
least one of his books from Rosenbach is seemingly more like on the fictional side of things, like they're essays, but I don't think they're like true to his life.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because it like uh, Newton talks about him, like going to his
Mhm.
books. No, not Charles Lamb. He's quite after Charles Lamb. Charles
Mhm.
Lamb is, early 19th century. This is sort of early
Mhm.
20th century. He died sometime, I think, in the early 20s. Uh, and he did essays like books on the table or something like that. More books on the table. That might actually
Yeah,
work.
those titles ring a bell, but I'm not remembering.
I might be able to
I'm just
find it.
gonna Google it here. I'm gonna Google it in front of us.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Go ahead because it'd be easier than me doing it on my
The
phone.
books on the table. I think I'm gonna have to do books on the table author because I just got pictures of books on tables. Edmund Goss.
That's it. Edmund Goss.
Yes, I
Yeah.
do have Edmund Goss. I have some Edmund Goss. I bought at least one volume by Edmund Goss at Book Bazaar here in Ottawa last year,
Yeah, I'm
and it's a
sure. Yeah,
green
I'm
book,
sure that
and
you
it's
did.
somewhere over there. Trying to remember what it's called. I think it literally has like books in the title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Anyway, it's over there somewhere.
I love his stuff, and I've got a wee little book that's the thing is it was almost destroyed coming
Mhm.
through the mailbox of my old
Yeah.
place. It's like 20 or 30 pages, and it's sort of the author's last days or last
Mhm.
memories
Yeah.
with Goss,
Mhm.
and it's got a dust jacket on anything that's from the early 20s, and
Yeah.
it was the way my uh, place was at the old place for putting mail in. Like there was a box on the door,
Mhm.
so it would only go in so far. So the mail people, if it didn't go in, they bent whatever and then
Oh,
shoved it in. So they did this, but then thankfully it didn't go down like this bent. It
yeah.
went up into the door. Like
Oh,
it actually went up into the door.
yeah.
It was hard to get out, so there was a bit of a kink in the spine, but it
Yeah.
thankfully wasn't so bad. And it was like,
Yeah.
oh, because
Oh.
it was such a rare book because there was only a couple of them listed, but I got it
Mhm.
cheap, and, and I was oh I was so angry. I tore a strip off the
Yeah.
mail person the
Oh,
next
yeah.
time they came. No, I love his stuff, and people
Yeah.
like I've read his memoir, sort of father and son. A lot of
Mhm.
that's considered really highly, but it's his essays that I
Mhm.
really like. And,
Mhm.
his what is it? His father or grandfather was a my memory is really failing me this
Mhm.
evening, but was some kind of scientist, I think, was well renowned. But yeah, Edmund Goss was the sort of
Mhm.
critic of the
Yeah.
time, and but he was tore down because his connection with people who did fakery in books as well. So, but yeah, his essays are just marvelous.
Yeah.
So that's two people that I definitely want to get more of. And I definitely want like I say, you mentioned the catalog, the catalog. Oh, I was drooling when you were showing that when you first.
Well, I've seen them. Like, I think there are like a few sets or like individual volumes that you could buy right now. It would only cost you about $100.
I know, yeah, and I don't have. That's the
Yeah.
thing. But I'd love to get them. Yeah, and he is something that's. I'd love to actually get his that little painting that was done for him on his hobby horse.
Yeah.
Because it's got so much meaning. Because it's like he's going through the fence and everything. Like, well, I don't know. Nobody's going to be interested in this if they haven't seen it. They're not going to have a clue what we're talking about.
One of the curiosities that gets me is in the catalog. One of the items listed at auction is Dr. Johnson's silver teapot that Newton had like collected because he was a huge fan of Dr. Johnson, Samuel Johnson. And I'm like, okay, like where is the teapot today?
Yeah.
Because I've tried like Googling like Dr. Johnson's silver teapot and I find like historical references to it as like part of the collection. But I'm like, who owns it? Is like someone, like, is it in a glass case somewhere? Did a museum acquire it? Is someone drinking tea out of it?
Doesn't your copies of the auction list, like somebody's written in the final prices, or
yeah, someone has penciled in the final prices. What I'm assuming are the final prices that each of the items sold for at auction.
Too bad they didn't put who bought some of them.
Well, I would guess some of it's probably not known because it would have been like someone's agent or representative went and purchased it, and who knows where it went.
Yeah, because I love the story when he got the dictionary that belonged to the woman that was the sort of his patron. That would be so cool. And he also didn't part of the collection too. Didn't he have, I think, a poetry book that belonged to Byron or Shelley when they were students?
Yeah. That sounds, I'm thinking Shelley. Shelley sounds about right. But like he had some really interesting things like illustrations for like the works of Charles Dickens and like manuscript, like written manuscript copies of some of the novels. And it would be really interesting to see where some of that stuff is now.
Well, he loved the association copies, for this stuff, and that's why he had a whole bunch of Dickens too. And I remember in some place that he says he doesn't want to be known as that. He didn't want to do that. But there are books out there with them association copies to other people.
Yeah.
So that was fun to see, and see that would be kind of cool to have. It would be kind of cool to have something, an association copy of one of his.
Yeah.
But again, there's lots of money involved there.
Yeah.
And then what your other collections of Peter Pan and
yes, and it was kind of a fun moment for me because in case anyone hasn't heard, the new Taylor Swift album, The Tortured Poets Department, came out on Friday, and one of the very last tracks on the album is called Peter, and it's full of like literary references to Peter Pan.
Oh, really?
And so I was like, yes, it's perfect. One of my favorite artists referencing one of my favorite authors.
Well, then you can justify buying it because it goes with the Peter Pan collection.
I should go out and just spend $20,000 on a first edition of Peter Pan and tank my bank account because of a Taylor Swift song.
Yeah. And what's the artist too? The Hugh Thompson you like too, and
the illustrator.
Yeah.
Who did a bunch of J.M. Barrie works in the early 20th century.
You must know there's a series of books that were done, and I think he illustrated them all or a lot of them. They're sort of byways and the byways of
Yeah,
wherever.
byways and highways. Yeah, he illustrated, I think, most of those. I think it's possible there was another illustrator or two over the course of when those were published, but he's also known for, if you think of that very famous copy of Pride and Prejudice with the peacock
Oh
feathers,
yeah, yeah.
that's Hugh Thompson.
So you need to get a first edition of that then.
Yeah, in my dreams.
But yeah, Andrew Lang did one of those. So there's a perfect one to get.
Yeah.
It's the byways and highways, I think the borders of Scotland or something like that. Pretty sure that was Andrew Lang.
Yeah.
There's a few. Oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. There's another essayist I really like. Oh, I just lost his name. He was the editor of Punch for a while. Oh, again, it's lost. But he's somebody else. He did one of those also, and I've got probably about 15 of collection of essays of his. He also did this series of books that were walks. I think walks in like Venice and stuff like that. Oh, geez, I'm dangerous at times because my brain is just not working. Lucas, E.V. Lucas.
Yes.
That's there was another one of those that he did for that as well. But that's if you haven't got E.V. Lucas, you need to get some of the E.V. Lucas.
Yeah, not yet.
He did so much. That's the thing. There was, I read somewhere they said that he wrote more words than he ever spoke in his life. And I think a lot of them, like if you look at the bibliography of Andrew Lang, it's like, how did these people sleep? How did they have enough time to eat? You know, it's just they wrote so much. It's like the Reptier that you like.
Agnes Repplier. Like she must have written like hundreds and hundreds of essays and articles for various publications over the course of her career. And I think that was mainly because that was like she was earning her living because her father had gone bankrupt. And she had, I think it was a brother who was disabled. And so it was like, okay, like her mother was basically like, go out, like write, figure out how to support yourself. And then, of course, she ended up helping to support her family.
Well, it just seems like these people, like she probably read, and then like in the course of a day, probably depending on what she read, she probably could write off or run off 3 or 4 essays in a day.
Probably, yeah.
Because they had these memories of all these things. Well, sometimes they weren't perfect because you do the errors in references, but it's still just amazing how they could write, so quickly and it'd be published everywhere. I just don't know how they do it.
Sometimes I'm struggling to remember the details of what I read yesterday or like 5 minutes ago. I'm like, I know it was a vague notion about this thing and the person might have been called that. And like, I could sit down and write essays like that.
Well, there's another one too. Benson, A.E. Benson. Well, there's 3 brothers. There's E.F. Benson, who wrote Map and Lucia and Ghost Stories. And then there was the Monsignor Benson, who wrote some ghost stories as well. And there was a sister who was an Egyptologist. But they all had mental issues, and they all sort of were wound up, I think, with or had deep depression. But as it I think it's A.E. Benson, and there's like dozens and dozens of these books and essays too. The one that's really good is From My College Window, I think it is. That I've reread that many times. It's really good. But it's just, again, like these people, they're all around the same period, like late 1800s, 1890s until the 20s, basically. And I just don't know. but then again, like that's the same thing as the book collectors that we both
Mhm.
like and read. That's the period pretty well,
Yeah.
up into the 30s.
Mhm.
Um, and it just works really well for
Mhm.
some reason. Because I like even like you've read more of the more recent ones
Yeah.
than I have of ones you haven't read the second one that you got me I think last year, but the I can't remember the one that it was good, but it's still
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
so
I know which one you mean. Um, I can't remember the title of the author right now, but
yeah
it's like a greenish cover with gold, and it's about
yeah
like the bookseller, I think, working in a bookshop in London, and there's some very strange stories in it where you're like, okay, like there's some interesting stuff, but like, why are you telling these random stories about what is it like carrying a coat rack or a lamp across the city for no reason?
yeah yeah it's like they're good, but they're
Yeah,
lacking
yeah.
something.
It's like there's not that like respect and interest in the books. And
Yeah,
some of the modern ones are just kind of flippant, like, oh yes, I was here, like lucky me.
I haven't read the what is it, what is it, the Scottish guy? Uh,
Yeah, Sean.
the B, I think.
Yeah, thinking Sean Baker, but that could be wrong.
Blythe or something like that, I thought
Yeah,
was. I can't think of his name. Boy, we're a good pair with memories today.
yeah. Oh, Sean Blythell, Confessions of a Bookseller. I think there's actually, he's got at least 3 of them now, and they're all pretty much the same thing. They're like daily diary entries of working in his shop in Scotland.
Yeah, some people have said those are really good, but I
Mhm.
haven't. You've read some of them, haven't
Yeah,
you?
yeah, like I've read 2 of them, and I think I had bought the 3rd on audiobook and left it half finished because it's good, but it's all kind of the same thing. And I wouldn't say it has like reread value like some of the older stuff. Like I could reread like the Newton essays over and over again, but the Sean Blythell, like you read them once and like you've read it
Yeah,
because it's not the kind of thing where he really digs into subjects. It's more sort of the mundane, everyday. Oh, saw this book or saw this interesting thing, and then moving on.
yeah. Well, that's what like all the Andrew Lang ones. The
Mhm.
one that I can't think of. It's like his book collecting. It's
Mhm.
and he talks about the Elzeviers and um, and his collection of stuff, and it's just
Mhm.
amazing. It's like, well, he was a bit of an older sort of
Yeah.
collector than that,
Mhm.
but still, it is amazing the stuff that you read, and it's just like I say, you want to reread them as well because I've
Mhm.
reread that one several times. The Edmund Goss isn't so much book collecting, but it's more literary type essays, but there is that feel to it as well, that like a book collecting or love of
Mhm.
literature,
Yeah.
especially.
Mhm.
Um, Burrell, what's his name? Burrell, Augustus
Burwell.
Burrell. Yeah, I think it
Yeah.
is.
It's Augustus or is it Augustine? I think it's Augustus.
Yeah,
Augustus Burrell.
but yeah, his essays
Yeah.
cover both,
Hmm.
and he was a politician, like he
Yes.
was
Yeah. Augustine Burrell. I just looked him
Augustine.
up.
Okay, yeah. Those are really good because he was a collector of books as well. So and
Hmm.
they're just fun.
Hmm.
Um, I think I don't know. Nobody's putting up. We still have 8 people watching, but there's
Yeah,
nobody's
we
putting
have
up
8
comments.
people. They must be either they've walked away or they're really enjoying the conversation so much they don't want to ask any questions.
because I
Maybe
don't know if
they're all off doing their dishes, and this is just on in the background.
but yeah, I just don't know if anybody's interested in this because I was going to start talking about what's the guy who wrote Father Brown mysteries? Because you got
yes,
some essays of him.
yes.
Sorry,
The name is on the tip of my tongue.
Chesterton.
Let's see, Father Brown. As I'm Googling it again.
Yeah.
G.K. Chesterton. Yes, I've got 3 of his essay collections and 1 of his poetry collections. He's the one who writes like the really short works about like mundane things. Like there's one where he talks about how he went out to draw and he was really disappointed because he forgot to bring a white piece of chalk with him. He had all these pieces of colored chalks, but he wanted like a piece of white chalk for this particular like piece of his picture. And then he realized he was literally like sitting on like chalk rock. Like he had chalk around him naturally. And so he picks up a piece and he finishes his picture.
Well, I love the one. I'm sure it's his. It's like it's laying in bed or something like that. And he's just dreaming about, thinking, well, if I had long enough pencil, it's like completely random but they're just wonderful to read.
Feel like they're the like early 20th century version of what people would like post on their social media today.
Yeah,
you could sort of imagine like someone's tweet from like 10 years ago. Hey, like, if you were lying in bed, like, what if like how would it work if you looked up and you just like drew, like you could draw from here to here?
Yeah. No, yeah, it's amazing. And another one that's good is, oh jeez, my brain. Bennett. Is it Bennett? Oh geez. Put in the 3 towns, is it? The 3 towns or 5 towns, maybe it's called 5 towns.
Oh yeah, Arnold Bennett,
yeah. He wrote, I got a really good collection. He wrote these little essays in a number of publications. I can't remember the name of it, but there's essays about where somebody it came to court somehow about a library or selecting books for libraries, and he'll have a little bit about this, like controversies about books or the current book about Christmas books or things like that. Just really little pieces that are like 500.
I think I've read his one on Christmas books. I've read his essay on Christmas books.
Yeah, and they're just amazing essays that are just so fun. And I've got to get back into reading them because it's a long time since I have. Yeah. And that's why I can't wait. I think I'm along here is where I'm going to put all of my those kind of essay stuff here. Once I get the bookcases up, it's in the kitchen, but I don't care.
So, like, I know you've lived there for several months now. Like, how far are you into getting the whole book collection out of those boxes and on shelves?
I would say almost half is done. I like most stuff that's going upstairs is upstairs. There's still some in bags here that need to be carried up, but then I have to rearrange and build some bookcases upstairs, and then I need bookcases for downstairs here. And I'm hoping that I can fit everything in. And it's like I've got more space than I did. But I utilize that space more than I can here because I had bookcases in the center of the room. I can't have, ceiling high bookcases in the center of the rooms here. Or at least I shouldn't. But yeah, that's why I'm hoping in the kitchen here I can get 3 or 4 bookcases up, and that'll be sort of my sort of essays and a little more, I think. So that'll take care of that. Yeah, I would say about half is out almost. But upstairs is getting full. I've got to do something soon about the paperbacks because I do have a section for paperbacks. I had my DVDs on them, but I'd forgotten that I had carpet on. There's carpet on the floor, so the bookcase is empty, sit nicely. But once you put the books in, they sink down in the carpet and lean forward.
Oh, yeah.
So I've got to. So I've cleaned out the DVDs. They've gone somewhere else. So I've got to put little wedges underneath the front and then sort of lean them back.
Yeah.
Because that's all I need is them to come, because I got both sides. So in my bed's in the middle.
Yeah.
And
I guess you probably don't want to be drilling a bunch of holes in the walls to try to secure them.
No, I shouldn't do that. Like, I'll probably put a few screws in here or there, but most of them I don't think I'll be doing that, because they won't like it. I'm gonna have to have an inspection soon, because the agency that was dealing with everything has gone out of business. So there's a new agent that's dealing it, and they want to come and do an inspection. And go, But
make sure all the fire routes are properly open and everything looks presentable.
Yeah, hopefully I'll get a warning of it, so I'll have to do a little bit of work for that. But you can get out. If I can move around, I always say, then it's okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know. Are there any questions, or is there anything else you wanted to talk about, Amy? Or
I think we've covered a good breadth of things here.
Yeah. I do have to get back into reading some essays. I don't have anything, I don't think, out, because I think most of them I'm going to keep down here, or the ones that I would want to read. Because I used to have a really good routine. I'd read a poem in the morning when I got up, and then when I went before bed, I would read a short essay. So I'd always have something to bookend the day. And then for the 1 year, I was reading, I think at lunchtime was the Pepys, the first volume of the Pepys Diary. Some days were really quick.
Yeah. My lunchtime reading ritual has completely gone away, because I changed jobs back in February, and I'm with a new team who actually likes to sit together at lunch and socialize. And so I'm like, I better go be social and join them. And I enjoy it. It's nice to have lunch with people. But I'm like, there's no point in throwing a book in my bag anymore when I go to work.
Yeah, because now I guess you have to go to work now. I guess you're not no longer at home. So, but because you were, I think you mentioned this on a video about the dampness that was on the wall and stuff.
It seems to have resolved itself with the spring weather, because it was back in the fall when I noticed it was really humid in my apartment. And I was having condensation on the window, and there was condensation on the outer wall. And to the point where they had actually done a building inspection, because they were getting ready for controlled blasting at a construction site. And so my building manager had come through and I wasn't home, to the point where she noticed the humidity when she walked in and the condensation, and showed up unannounced the following Saturday at my door with a little dehumidifier. Which was good, because at first I was like, is it just me? Am I imagining it? It's more humid than normal? Because I was like, surely it's not been this way every year I've been here. And so I was like, no, this is actually a problem. And so all winter long, 24/7, I was running that dehumidifier. And even then I still had a bit of condensation on the windows. And so that's why most of my book collection is here in the bedroom now, instead of in the main room, because that's where the outer wall is. And so I had the big dehumidifier running out there and a little dehumidifier running in here. And it was like that all winter up until about a month ago, when the weather started to get warmer. And all of a sudden, it had gone away, because I guess temperature outside was different. We didn't have snow on the roof anymore. And they're supposed to, I guess, do some work on the roof of my building this summer. That should apparently fix that, because I was told, oh, like it's humid and there's condensation because the roof needs to be repaired. So hopefully that was it, and hopefully it'll be repaired and I won't have to worry about that next year.
Yeah, I've got a bit of an issue with that as well. The humidity, which I'm going to have to get a dehumidifier or two. I only have two outside walls, the front and the back, because there's on either side. But it's weird. It's only in one corner that I have a problem.
Yeah.
So that tells me it's that corner. There's an issue in that corner. And that's, I'm hoping maybe the new place or the new agency will sort of take a look at it, at some point, because I've got some mold that I've got to clean up, but I need some help with that. So
yeah, and like I was really diligent when I realized there was a moisture issue, and so I was like pulling things out and wiping down the walls. And I think I found like one spot of mold one time, but for the most part, I was like, no, like we're not going to have any mold in here, because that's bad for the books and bad for my health as well. But hopefully it'll be fixed, because I really like this building and I don't want to have to move. Especially don't want to have to move to a place that isn't nicely locked in and rent controlled like this one is.
Well, and also too, if it's a higher rise building, you got good floors. You got, really, you could put a lot of weight on the floors as well.
Oh yeah, like this building is from the 1960s and it's solid concrete, so
yeah. So
I don't have to worry about weight at all.
Yeah, you could put bookcases down the center and have no problem.
Yeah.
I was doing that in a little room in a over 100-year-old house,
out
of wood. But it's like I'm sure there was it groaned once it was emptied.
Oh, probably.
But yeah, I knew it was going to hold. But I'm not quite sure. I probably had about 5,000 books in this room. So and it's basically £1.5 to £2 per book. Let's say half a kilo per book. So it's like, probably I had about 3,000 kilos.
Wow.
So
just imagining like some insurance person like trying to do some math somewhere. Like, are we okay to keep this building insured under the policy?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, it should be fine in most places. It's like, yeah, you put everything in one spot. It's you got a problem. But if I can stand in a spot, then a bookcase could go there.
Yeah. Why not?
But anyway, I guess we'll say bye to everybody. It's an hour and a half, and thanks for stopping by, and thanks, Amy.
Yeah, I'm glad I could join you, and thanks to everyone who stopped by today.
And we'll do this again eventually, I'm sure.
Definitely,
because I hope to be able to do it every Sunday, I think, because Sunday seems to be a good day for people, because what else are they doing on Sunday?
Yeah, and next time we do it, we'll pick a week where I've had actual productive reading.
Yeah, and that's same as me, because like I say, I just finished one book and I only got 150 pages into a 800-page book, so I didn't do much. But anyway, we'll see you next time, BookTube. Thank you.